Hello there, welcome to another Fantasy Grounds episode with Ungainly Titan. I'm going to continue on from where we left off in the previous episode where we were describing how to create characters. So here we have Darren, a champion fighter, and I have completed most of this character the same as previously. I generated the stats, added on the fighter human background and all the rest of it. So we have some basic stats. We have all these gear and equipment dragged and on from the items section. However, there are elements of his character sheet that are incomplete. One of them is that his fighting style is yet to be picked. The action surge is not trackable. And neither is the second wind. And the champion featured the improved critical. Now, we ran into a glitch when I was looking at the improved critical. It insisted that I had a load of module that I actually didn't load when I was creating the character, which is the class pack. Now, that needed to be fixed to the DM side. I was connected to a game. So that had to be unlocked by the DM and allowed use by the player. And then I had to unlock it in the module section to make it available so that I could then go into the champion and click on the improved critical section and see what it exactly said, so that I could modify the character sheet to reflect an improved critical. Basically, the improved critical gives me a crit on a 19 rather than on a 20, same as normal. So the improved critical can be picked on the weapons group. The other feature is that Big Great Weapon Fighter, which is the fighting style that I chose, allows for a reroll on 1s and 2s, or 1s and 2s when rolled are automatically rerolled. You can do this in Fantasy Grounds by going into the weapon property of the weapon and giving it a reroll property, and putting 2 after to say that it rerolls 1s and 2s. If you reroll the 2s and you get a 1, well, tough, you're stuck with a 1. I've tested this and it works. So now I have the action surge, the improved critical right. So we go into the weapons group and we just change the critical numbers from melee and range to 20. And I rolled dice to make sure that this actually worked. Now, in the champion fighter, the improved critical is on all weapons, so we do it on the weapon group. If, for instance, it was only specific weapons, then you'd have to actually go to the individual weapons and change the criticals there in some way. So I dragged the action surge in to create powers relating to action surge so that I can track action surges. Now, I didn't parse anything for action surges, but that's fine, we don't need it to parse anything. It did parse the healing element of second wind, but it didn't create any trackable element. Now I'm going to call action surge an action surge power group, and we're going to call the second wind power group, because both of them are trackable. They occur once per rest. So I can then go into the group properties, and I can edit that, change the rest to daily from daily to rest, and I get a circle that allows me to tick it off when we've used the power. And we can do the same with the action surge. And that is that character pretty much done. If you type into the chat window / question mark, you get a list of commands. One of them is Scale UI, which I've just used, which changes the size of the real estate of the screen. The smaller numbers make the screen, gives you more real estate, but at the cost of making the icons and the text smaller. The larger numbers can shove it the other way. They make the text and the icons look bigger, but they can actually, from my experiments, shove the screen real estate outside the visible window, in which case you can get into real trouble. If you right-click on the chat dialog like I did there, you get an option to unlock the chat dialog. So you can move it around and change its location and change its size. So you could move it to the top of the screen or the left or the right, or to make it wider or narrower or whatever. When you're satisfied with the location, you can relock it, just like I'm doing there. You can also, if you put the combat tracker in a particular location, it should reopen and that location for the session at any rate. Most of the other documents open in the center, and there doesn't seem to be much you can do about it. Maps presented to you by the DM open in the center. However, you can move them around. You can move the entire map by pulling at the top edge. You can resize it by moving obviously the bottom right hand corner. You can drag it around in the screen to put it whatever location you are most comfortable in. Now if you do shut down the map, it won't reopen in the same location. Just be aware of that. And you have to do the whole resizing thing again if it comes from the DM side that's reshoved out to you. I'm not sure if you went into the map elements, the pictures or images button, if it was visible to you, and opened up the map, because it's already been shared. Once the map has been shared, the players should be able to actually open the map. Now you can also resize the map by pressing Control when you have the mouse inside the map and just moving the mouse around, which is what I did there. You can move around within the map by just dragging on that arrow, golden coloured arrow thing down there at the bottom right. You can also zoom in and out of the map by just using the middle of the mouse wheel. So here we have the party in a player map, a combat map, with Fog of War enabled. So you can only see what the DM allows you to see. We have the character sheet brought up here because we're now preparing for action, and I just want to show you some other things that you can do here with the character sheet. One of them is you can drag stuff like initiative and skills or anything else you feel that you might use a lot and you might want to use even when the character sheet isn't open. So you can drag a perception, but you actually got to drag the number. So you drag the number down into these boxes on the bottom. They're numbered 1 to 12, and I think you can use the Alt and Shift keys to actually gain access to other numbers. I haven't actually tried it, but I believe you can have quite a lot of quick access, more or less macros. You can also type stuff in and put dice stuff in there as well. So you want to do battle cries to be emitted in Dwarvish or whatever. You could drag and drop it from the chat window and just have it emitted every time you do your thing. So we've pressed there for a perception roll, and we can, if you're permitted by the DM and the character tokens aren't locked, you can move the character around whatever way you want. So the characters are also on the combat tracker now. They've been placed there by the DM, and the initial description of the cave mouth has been emitted by the DM to the combat tracker. I decided to make the combat tracker slightly bigger there. So you can read the description that the DM or the module creator has built to allow you to see or show what's being seen, and you can move your character. We're not doing anything on the initiative order just yet, so things are pretty informal, and the characters are just discussing with the DM what they're going to do next. We're not. The DM has revealed a slightly larger area of the cave and has issued some more text describing something that the characters have spotted, and but we haven't revealed necessarily on the map where this text applies to, because obviously things would be different from depending on who's looking at it or where they can see stuff. Now a larger area of the cave has been opened up, and the characters are obviously asking what it is this human corpse can be seen. So the DM draws in an area on the map, and one of the characters moves up to this area to examine the body more closely, and by disturbing the body they've actually discovered they have triggered a zombie. So Darren clicks on his initiative, rolls his initiative, and everybody else rolls their initiative in the background. Now I want to make Darren go first, so I'm going to adjust it in a moment so that he'll actually go first, just to demonstrate this thing more clearly. Now that everybody's rolled initiative, we're into more combat orientated mode. We're going to zoom in a little to the action so that we can see it more clearly. Though wearing my DM hat, I'd forgotten to actually set initiative on the character on the map. Now here I'm demonstrating the use of anchored tokens, where the tokens are anchored by the DM and movement can only occur with the DM's permission. So what happens is that as you move, an arrow is drawn showing your direction of movement. And when you stop, if you press shift, you can continue movement and change directions so that the arrow can then go in a new direction. When the DM has approved of the movement, your character will then just slide forward along the path. Here we're dropping an attack roll directly onto the zombie without targeting the zombie. So he's not listed as targeted by anybody on the chart, and we've succeeded. So we're going to drop the damage on his entry on the combat tracker. And both of them are legitimate ways of attacking a particular character. So the initiative has moved on to Carrick, and then it moves back around to Darren again. Now at this stage I'm going to actually use targeting. Character is selected, or you're the active player, and you press Control click on an entry on the combat tracker or on the token. You can target that creature. So if you look at the Darren entry there, as I've been doing that on the screen, the target zombie appears and the target zombie disappears as I control click. So you can add it on or add it off. So that means I can just double click my weapon and the attack is directed, and it's directed against the appropriate zombie. And I double click my damage, and the damage will likewise affect the zombie, so he's now dying. And similarly would affect for targeting effects. So I could, if I had a healing power, for instance, I could target a friendly creature, and the healing power would affect them automatically. I have a more detailed video done mostly from the perspective of DMs and teaching DMs how to do things, but it covers this in a lot more detail, and I will have a link to this in the video description, but there should be a link here as well. Well, that's it. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this interesting. If you do, please consider giving the video a like, and please consider giving the channel a subscription. I will be doing more of these videos in due course, and thank you for watching. I'll catch you all again soon.